When Maya's paycheck landed at exactly 8:17 on a Friday morning, she smiled without even thinking about it. For the first time in 2 weeks, the number in her bank account looked comfortable. The quiet stress she'd been carrying suddenly felt lighter. She made coffee, opened her banking app one more time, and thought the same thing she thought every payday. This time, I'll stay ahead. By Friday afternoon, she ordered a few things she'd been meaning to buy. Nothing extravagant, just items she'd convinced herself she needed. On Saturday, lunch with friends became dinner too. Someone suggested dessert, then another stop for coffee. It was a great day, and she told herself she deserved it after working so hard. On Sunday evening, she paid a few bills, renewed a couple of subscriptions, and booked tickets for an event happening next month. Every decision felt reasonable. None of them felt reckless. Yet by the following Wednesday, something familiar happened. She opened her banking app again. The excitement was gone. The balance had already fallen far lower than she expected. She frowned, scrolling through the transactions. How did it disappear so fast? Nothing on the list looked like a major mistake. There wasn't a luxury vacation. There wasn't an expensive designer bag. There wasn't a giant shopping spree. Just dozens of ordinary purchases that seemed harmless on their own. And somehow, they had quietly stolen another paycheck. If that story feels familiar, it isn't because you're bad with money. It's because you've been taught to think about payday the same way almost everyone else does. Most people believe a paycheck is permission to start spending. But what if that's exactly backward? What if the first few hours after you get paid determine whether you'll still be living paycheck to paycheck 5 years from now? It sounds like an exaggeration. After all, how could a single day every 2 weeks make that much difference? Because payday isn't just the day money enters your account. It's the day your brain becomes the most vulnerable to making financial decisions you'll regret later. Behavioral economists have spent decades studying what happens when people suddenly receive money. Whether it's a paycheck, a bonus, a tax refund, or even lottery winnings, the pattern is surprisingly consistent. The moment people feel financially relieved, their decision-making changes. Before payday, every purchase feels expensive. After payday, many of those same purchases suddenly feel affordable. The money hasn't changed. Only your perception has. That's the trap. Your bank balance creates an illusion of wealth long before you've actually become wealthier. And while you're enjoying that feeling, something else is happening that most people never notice. Companies are waiting for payday too. Retailers launch promotions. Restaurants advertise weekend specials. Online stores send discount emails. Shopping apps notify you about limited time deals. Streaming services remind you to upgrade. Everyone wants to be first in line for money that just arrived in your account. Think about that for a moment. The instant your paycheck arrives, you're no longer deciding what to do with your money in a quiet environment. You're walking into a competition. On one side is your future. On the other side are thousands of businesses that spend billions of dollars every year learning how to separate people from their paychecks. The surprising part is that they don't need you to make one terrible decision. They only need you to make dozens of comfortable ones. A coffee here, a delivery fee there, an online order because shipping is free, a subscription that's only a few dollars a month, an impulse purchase that feels insignificant compared to your new paycheck. Individually, they're almost invisible. Together, they become the reason so many people wonder where their money went. Maya had no idea she was caught in this cycle. She thought her problem was income. She assumed earning more would finally solve everything. But over the next few weeks, she would discover something that completely challenged that belief. It wasn't the size of her paycheck that was keeping her stuck. It was what happened during the first hour after she got paid. And once she changed that one routine, her paycheck stopped disappearing and finally started building her future. The following Friday, Maya decided to try something different. Not because she had found a secret investment, not because she had received a raise, simply because she was tired of asking the same question every month. Where did my money go? That morning, before she bought coffee, before she opened a shopping app, and before she checked the latest online deals, she sat at her kitchen table with a notebook. She wrote one question at the top of the page. What does this paycheck need to do before it does what I want it to do? It seems like a small difference, but it completely changes how you think about money. Most people ask, how much can I spend? Wealth builders ask, what job does every dollar already have? Those two questions lead to two very different financial lives. Money is like a group of employees arriving at work. If you don't assign them a job, they'll wander off. If you do assign them a job immediately, they begin creating value. That's why the first hour after payday matters so much. Not because every decision has to be perfect, but because the most important decisions should happen before the emotional ones. Financial researchers have long observed a simple pattern. People are more likely to follow through on savings goals when the money is set aside before they have the chance to spend it. In behavioral economics, this is often called paying yourself first. It works because it reduces the need for constant self-control. Instead of relying on willpower every day, you make one intentional decision while your paycheck is still intact. That's exactly what Maya did. She created a routine with 5 simple steps. The first step wasn't shopping. It wasn't budgeting. It wasn't even checking social media. It was protecting her future. The moment her paycheck arrived, an automatic transfer moved part of it into a savings account she rarely looked at. Not whatever happened to be left over, a fixed amount, every payday. At first, the transfer felt uncomfortable. She worried she might need that money later. But after a few pay cycles, something surprising happened. She stopped missing it. Psychologists call this adaptation. Humans quickly adjust to a new normal. Just as people adapt to a salary increase, they also adapt to having slightly less available to spend. Once the money was out of sight, her spending naturally adjusted to the balance that remained. The second step was paying every essential bill: housing, utilities, insurance, transportation, minimum debt payments. These weren't exciting expenses, but they created something far more valuable than excitement. They created stability. Stress often comes from uncertainty, not just a lack of money. Knowing the essentials were already covered allowed Maya to stop carrying a constant mental burden throughout the month. Then came the third step: high-interest debt. This was the part she had avoided for years. Every month she paid the minimum and promised herself she'd pay more next time. Next time rarely came. Now she committed to sending extra money toward the balance immediately after payday. Before restaurants, before online shopping, before entertainment. Every extra payment reduced the amount of interest working against her future. It wasn't dramatic, but it was powerful. Imagine trying to climb a hill while someone keeps pulling you backward with a rope. High-interest debt works the same way. The harder you earn, the more it quietly drags your progress behind you. Breaking that pull creates momentum that many people underestimate. The fourth step was investing. Not because she felt like an expert, not because she could predict the stock market, but because she finally understood something that had been true all along. Time is one of the few financial advantages available to almost everyone. The earlier money begins working, the longer compound growth has to do its job. Albert Einstein may or may not have called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. The quote is debated, but the principle itself is undeniable. Growth earning more growth over many years can produce results that seem impossible when viewed over only a few months. The key isn't chasing extraordinary returns. It's giving ordinary returns enough time. Finally came the fifth step. Only after her future had been funded did Maya decide how much she could comfortably spend. Notice the difference. She didn't eliminate fun. She didn't swear off restaurants. She didn't stop enjoying life. She simply changed the order. And that change quietly transformed every paycheck from a temporary reward into a long-term building block. This is where everything begins to change. Most people think financial success comes from earning more money, but the numbers often tell a different story. 2 people can earn exactly the same salary. One reaches payday feeling anxious every month. The other steadily builds savings, reduces debt, and grows investments. The difference isn't always income, it's the system. Because money doesn't usually disappear because of one terrible decision. It disappears because small decisions arrive before important ones. And once Maya understood that, payday no longer felt like the finish line after 2 weeks of work. It became the starting line for building the life she actually wanted. For the first few paychecks, nothing about Maya's life looked dramatically different. She wasn't suddenly wealthy. She wasn't posting pictures from luxury vacations. She wasn't driving a new car. In fact, from the outside, almost nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, something far more important was happening. For the first time in years, her money was moving with intention instead of emotion. Every payday followed the same routine. Protect the future. Cover the essentials. Reduce expensive debt. Invest consistently. Then enjoy what remained without guilt. The routine took less than an hour. Yet it influenced every financial decision she made over the next 2 weeks. Months passed. Her emergency savings quietly grew. The credit card balance that once seemed permanent became smaller and smaller. Investment contributions continued, even during months when life felt busy or unpredictable. What surprised her most wasn't the growth of her accounts. It was the change in her mindset. She no longer looked at her paycheck and thought, "What can I buy?" She started asking, "What can this paycheck build?" That single question changed everything. Because wealth isn't just the result of earning money. It's the result of directing money. Behavioral psychologists often talk about the power of identity. People are more likely to maintain habits when those habits become part of who they believe they are. Instead of trying to force better financial decisions every month, Maya stopped seeing herself as someone who was trying to save money. She became someone who always gave her money a purpose. That identity made consistency easier. Missing one investment contribution no longer felt like skipping a payment. It felt like acting against the person she had decided to become. That's a much stronger form of motivation than excitement. Excitement fades. Identity lasts. Of course, life still happened. Unexpected expenses appeared. A car repair, a medical bill, a family emergency. The routine didn't prevent problems. It prepared her for them. Instead of reaching for a credit card every time life surprised her, she had options. And options create freedom. This is one of the biggest misconceptions about financial freedom. Many people imagine it as a specific dollar amount. $1 million, $10 million, early retirement. But financial freedom doesn't begin with a number. It begins with having enough control over your money that unexpected events no longer control you. That's why this paycheck routine matters so much. It isn't about perfection. You'll still make mistakes. You'll still buy things you later regret. You'll still have months that don't go according to plan. The goal isn't to win every financial decision. The goal is to make sure the most important decisions happen first. Because once your future has already been funded, the small mistakes become exactly that, small. The truth is, every paycheck tells a story. For some people, it tells the story of another month spent reacting. For others, it tells the story of steady progress that almost no one notices until years later. The difference isn't luck. It isn't intelligence. And in many cases, it isn't even income. It's the routine that begins the moment the money arrives. Years from now, you probably won't remember what you bought with a random paycheck in 2026. You won't remember the delivery order, the impulse purchase, or the weekend sale that felt impossible to ignore. But you will feel the consequences of the habits you built today. Every paycheck is a vote. A vote for the life you want tomorrow. A vote for the habits you'll repeat next month. A vote for the person you're becoming with every financial decision. The amount on your paycheck matters, but what you do in the first hour after it arrives matters even more. Because the people who build lasting wealth don't wait to see what's left at the end of the month. They decide what matters most at the very beginning. And that's the financial truth most people discover far too late. Your paycheck doesn't determine your future. Your paycheck routine does.